Is stealing wrong? What about murder or literally anything at all? What is wrong? What we're talking about when we ask these questions is objective morality. The idea that something is wrong without personal opinion. It's just wrong because it is. Moral truths are supposed to be discovered, not necessarily created or invented. Now, I disagree that there are any objective moralities. And I disagree because I think that it was all made over cultural responses. So today I'm going to be challenging my thoughts a bit. Before we dive in, tell me in the comments whether you think there is such thing as objective morality. Now, if objective morality exists, then there are things that are just wrong in general. Like both of us could say that murder and torture and cruelty is wrong, right? It's almost like math and science. It's wrong just because it is. That's just the way it is. Now, when I say that there's no such thing as objective morality, I'm also saying that I can't tell you you're wrong about anything. I think C.S. Lewis talks about this a bit, where if I were to tell you, hey, stealing is wrong, I have no basis of whether it's wrong or right, because I have no objective morality. I'm only going off of my own subjective morality. And so when I tell you that stealing is wrong, you could simply say, well, how do you know? And I could say something like, well, it takes away from another person. But why is that wrong? There are a lot of holes in not believing in objective morality, things that I don't think I could ever get around. Regardless, I don't think that objective morality was ever discovered. I think that it's just a construct of what we've done and realized, hey, this isn't okay. When somebody kills someone in an early tribe, now we have one less worker, so we're going to say it's wrong. That doesn't mean it's objectively wrong. If that person did something heinous, then killing them might be accepted. And so then it wouldn't be so wrong. Or if someone in an early tribe had some kind of weapon and I were to steal it to save the rest of the tribe from being hurt, then is it still wrong? This is kind of the idea that I go on when I say that objective morality doesn't exist. And objective morality isn't just in humans too. Chimpanzees have actually shown to punish members who are breaking social rules. But again, we're talking about social rules, which in my opinion are subjective. We didn't discover social rules. Or perhaps we did discover social rules, because if somebody did something that nobody liked, we then fell upon that it is wrong. Perhaps my entire argument isn't necessarily right. And even in that statement that it's not necessarily right tells me that I'm basing myself off of some kind of objective morality. If evolution created morality, then we did discover it, which means that there is some such thing as objective morality. For instance, we feel empathy, and empathy is just us saying that what you're going through is wrong or right. And if it's wrong or right, I feel bad for you or I feel good for you, which is us basing it off of something objective. But if it's objective morality, we were never really taught what it was. So then how do we really know that it's wrong or right? My idea of it being like some kind of social comfort doesn't really make sense because it's really just empathy, which is something that we all have objectively. Or at least most people have objectively. Maybe if you have a mental illness, you can't base yourself off of some kind of objective morality because you just don't feel it. You lack empathy to feel the objective right or wrong. But a couple people not realizing that something's objectively right or wrong doesn't necessarily say that there is no such thing as objective right or wrong. If some kind of objective morality comes from biology and evolution, then it is objective, it's not subjective anymore. Of course, other things were shaped by culture and religion, but outside of those things, there's still some kind of biological right and wrong. We feel this need to befriend other people or interact in our relationships because it would be more helpful to have other people in some kind of small tribe, which would be a product of evolution. And so then needing to care for other people's needs, which is part of empathy, would be just part of evolution. Kind of like a I scratch your back, you scratch mine kind of thing, but subconscious. One of the points I wanted to bring up was moral disagreements imply moral standards. I already kind of talked about this earlier, but if I say that you're wrong, I'm basing it off of some kind of objective morality. Because otherwise, I could never convince you that something is wrong. Calling something unfair would be kind of silly of me. Because what is fairness? I mean, if there's no such thing as objective right or wrong, then I can't say that something is unfair because what am I basing it off of? I could be basing it off of my own subjective opinion, but then how did I get those morals? If any point I got those morals in my biology or in some kind of evolutionary response, then it's objective. I think C.S. Lewis made this point, although I don't know for sure, but you can't say that there's a foul in football without some kind of rules in football. Same with me saying that you're wrong. There has to be some kind of moral guideline for me to say that you're wrong, or else I'm just saying, oh, that's a foul without actually having any reason to say that it was. Okay, but this leaves just like a few things that I kind of disagree with. Unnecessary cruelty is wrong, but then you could say that like, do you need to eat animals? And the answer is no. One quick Google search says that you could have a plant-based diet. So then why aren't we all vegan? Now, I love steak just as much as the next person, but I'm I'm unnecessarily torturing an animal just to have some kind of pleasure, which makes no sense. I could eat something equally as good that's plant-based and it not have tortured somebody. It could have not tortured something. And it kind of goes into what Socrates said, maybe I'm being ignorant of other suffering. But anyone that believes in some kind of objective morality would have to say that veganism is the right way to go. And also, can we name every single thing that's objectively immoral? Or do we just all feel like it is objectively moral? For instance, we can all say that murder is wrong in most cases, but can you name every single instance where murder would be wrong? Because I can't name every subjective opinion I have, and that proves that all my opinions are subjective. Because they're things that I haven't fully thought about yet. But then again, maybe that proves that there are objective moralities, because regardless if I could name them all, when something comes up, I still know that it's wrong or right. And for me to even say that I ought not to harm someone is me pretty much explaining that there is some kind of objective morality that I'm basing it off of. I also have this issue if I were to say that there is no such thing as objective morality, because then I wake up every morning and want to be better. But what is better? I don't think anyone wakes up and says, I want to be worse than I was yesterday. But even to say I want to be worse than I was yesterday is implying that there is some kind of moral basis of which is worse or is better. Which means objective morality has to exist. You could say that people only change and they don't necessarily improve, but then what is improvement? Because me and you can say that people can improve at things, like building a house. If I were to build a house better, I am improving. And you could say that there are better people and worse people. For instance, I think we can all agree that Hitler was a terrible person, which means that we have to have some kind of moral basis to guide off of. So to say, for instance, in New Year's that you want to be a better person is saying that there's some kind of objective morality that you're basing it off of. If there was no objective morality, then you couldn't compare moral systems. Because to compare a moral system is to say that there's some kind of basis of which you're wrong or right on something. Politicians wouldn't be able to argue about something like whether slavery is wrong or right if there was no objective way to look at it. So without objective morals, we could all say that slavery is right because there's nothing saying that it's wrong. But we all know that slavery is wrong, therefore there is some kind of objective morality. But all this objective morality tends to be people-based. If something hurts somebody, then it's wrong. But as long as it doesn't hurt a human, then it's not wrong. Just like the veganism. We don't call each other cruel because we ate, well, actually, some people do, but we don't call each other cruel because we ate chicken or steak, only because that's not human. But as soon as a cannibal comes around, it is wrong. And I'm not arguing that cannibalism isn't wrong. I'm just saying we have to have some kind of objective basis to say that it is. Some people would say that this implies that there's some kind of God that made objective morality, but I think that this is just evolutionarily based. It's evolutionarily based because we have to eat something. There's not always going to be crops around. So we have to eat something to survive. And so then we say that killing an animal isn't necessarily wrong as long as it does more good, but killing a person is wrong because it always does bad. And these are objective morals. But then to say that murder is always wrong is kind of a fallacy, because what if it's for self-defense or some kind of like if I were to kill Hitler? It goes back into like almost the trolley problem. As long as I'm killing one to save five, then it's okay. And maybe that goes back into evolution, because if I had five people versus one person, it is better to have five people that can get more things done than one person. Even people that deny objective morality still say that fairness exists. And to say that fairness exists is to imply that there is some kind of objective morality. I think most of my arguments are based off of C.S. Lewis because I was just reading about him, but C.S. Lewis kind of argues that when you say something like that's unfair, you can't do that, you're implying some kind of objective morality. Now with the that's unfair, I could understand, but with the you can't do that, I think it's because we have some kind of moral guideline like law that makes us say, hey, that's not okay. We can all usually agree that murder is wrong, and so then we can say that that's not okay. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's objective morality, that just means that we can all agree on something. But then you kind of get into, did we discover it? Now, I don't really have an answer for this, and I think as I'm making this video, I'm slowly starting to believe that objective morality does exist, and it's not really, there's not really a way to think that there is no objective morality. Because humans feel things like guilt, shame, duty, and responsibility, and I think that's because there is some kind of objective basis that we're going off of. But our morals change, and so then we can't say that we've always been on one kind of objective path, which means that then it is subjective. Like, for instance, sexuality. Back then, back before really Roman times, most people would agree that marriage is for man and woman. But now we don't necessarily see an issue with it. So then our morals change, which means that it wasn't on a objective path. Or maybe there are objective opinions and subjective opinions, and what we were basing it off of was a subjective opinion, and now we've come to the reason that matches more with an objective opinion, which is that same-sex marriage is fine because it's not necessarily hurting anyone. So then objective morals still exist, we just have wrong subjective opinions that aren't objective. And so then when we say that our morals changed, we're just basing them more on this objective morality. Like, think of it as like a line, and we kind of peered off. And as we peer off, we're less objective in our opinion. So when we say that people like disagree about some morals, like maybe euthanasia, we would say that some people would say that that's wrong, and other people would say that that's right. Oh, but that's actually a really good argument, because typically our objective moral basis is off whether it hurts people, and euthanasia could both hurt and help someone. Same with things like war. If war is over some kind of greater cause, I couldn't name a greater cause necessarily at this moment, but let's say that it was going to prevent something that was really bad that would hurt more people than it would save, then if we go to war to stop that specific thing, it's not necessarily objectively wrong. And because it's not objectively wrong and it's a subjective opinion, but we could all agree that it's right because we're saving more amount of people, then it's a subjective opinion that is right. That is objectively right. But it's objectively right, which means that it's an objective moral. I suppose we could go back to like the euthanasia, the euthanization of people. If somebody says, I'm in so much pain that I need to die, but it hurts like their family, we can't say that it's objectively right or wrong. So that and it's not really on that bow and arrow, or not bow, but on that arrow of objective morality. So then in what with people that argue for objective morality would say that that's either like off of objective morality, it's a subjective opinion that can never be morally or objectively answered. I suppose it doesn't necessarily disprove objective morality all in all, but it is a good argument to say that objective morality can't really solve all moral responsibilities or questions, which then could be a pretty good argument against objective morality. Or maybe something like, we could all agree that lying is wrong. But if you're lying for some kind of greater cause, like to save someone from murder, then is it still wrong? And now, because we could all sort of disagree on these opinions, then it would be a subjective opinion. I don't think that this is something that I'm ever going to be able to actually definitively answer because, I mean, it has been argued about for millennia. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. This one was actually a really fun video to make. And I think that is because I couldn't necessarily come up with one answer. Although as I'm making this video, I am starting to believe that there is some kind of objective morality. And maybe these questions like, if I'm lying to save someone's life, then is it wrong, is just a subjective opinion that can never be answered. And it doesn't necessarily disprove an objective opinion. I think that's where I'm going to end today because I could probably talk about this for hours. So let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments, and definitely subscribe and like because it is free and it would really help me out. If you guys want me to make a part 2 to this video, leave it down in the comments. And also tell me how I can improve my setup because I know that this mic sucks, and I know that reading off of a script isn't necessarily interesting, so this video I didn't read off of a script. Yeah, just let me know what you guys think. And I suppose how I would sign off is, have a good day.